When we talk about lost films, most of the time this means a finished film which has since been lost to modern viewers. In the time of silver nitrate film reels, studio vaults were prone to fire sparked by the highly combustible material films were stored on, and vault fires have accounted for the permanent loss of swaths of films from this era. But even before this, the medium was once seen as disposable, the reels recycled for their silver content to produce new films, forever destroying the original content of the reel. The United States Library of Congress estimates that 75% of all silent era films are now lost, while the Film Foundation, a non-profit founded by Martin Scorsese, believes that 90% or more of all films made in the US before 1929 have been lost. As lost films do occasionally resurface, with original reels being found unlabelled in archives or in the hands of private owners, it is a field filled with the constant possibility of rediscovery, the romantic notion of blowing dust from a film canister, only to realise that it's the last print of London After Midnight by the Mountain Eagle. However, there is another kind of film that could, in its own way, be considered lost. Rather than an artwork now missing and potentially awaiting rediscovery, it is the project that could have been. It is the ideal rather than the idol. Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune fascinates sci-fi fans to this day despite never getting off the ground, and eventually being supplanted by the adaptations of several other directors. Ken Russell's vision of Oliver Reed as Dracula remains the greatest British production never staged. The collapse of Paul Verhoeven's historical epic Crusade was the first domino that led, in a Rube Goldberg chain of events, to the demise of Coralco Pictures. Perhaps one of the most tantalising of these lost dreams is the long-gestating surreal nightmare Ronnie Rocket, the David Lynch picture that never was. Before Ronnie Rocket, Lynch was known as the director of cult midnight movie favourite Eraserhead. Equal parts surreal and deeply personal, the film vividly explored Lynch's fondness for imagery depicting the dirt beneath the surface as a metaphor for his very real struggles with fatherhood and the body horror of birth. Although considered a classic today, influencing the works of Stanley Kubrick, Darren Aronofsky, and H.R. Giger among others, it was, by the late 1970s, a grindhouse-style midnight movie favourite, playing in extended runs in cinemas like the Waverly in New York. Lynch was not yet the Hollywood royalty, or outsider king that he is regarded as today, and his next project would take careful consideration. Eraserhead had been produced over several years as a passion project, with Lynch often living on the sets and filming sporadically as funding became available. And funding would once again be a crucial aspect of his next choice of project. He began writing Ronnie Rocket with several of the hallmarks seen in Eraserhead and again in his later films. A dark industrial set design, physical deformity, a nostalgia for 1950s Americana, and the linking of disparate, separate worlds. The script told the tale of Ronald Dart, a young dwarf musician who, through surgical mishap, is transformed into the electricity-wielding Ronnie Rocket, a rock star aided by the tap-dancing Electric Cute and pursued menacingly by the sinister Donut Men. Lynch's script was completed by the late 1970s, and he met with several agents and producers to arrange production. Ultimately, Stuart Corning of Brooks Films, a fan of the director by this time, believed it was unlikely that the film would attract the necessary funding to be completed in a timely fashion, and repeating the laborious schedule seen in making Eraserhead was not feasible within a studio system. Eager to work together regardless, Lynch and Brooks Films instead agreed upon an existing script, leading to the release of the director's sophomore effort, 1980's The Elephant Man. Following the success of The Elephant Man, which brought in Academy Award nominations for Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Screenplay, among others, Lynch once again returned to Ronnie Rocket. He took the script to Francis Ford Coppola, who invited him to stay on the latter's Napa Valley property. The pair worked on the script along with the musician-turned-actor Sting, and Coppola was set to produce it through his American Zoetrope production company. However, the release of the 1982 film One from the Heart, which lost over $25 million at the box office, forced American Zoetrope to shut its doors, and the collapse of the company left Lynch without the backing he needed. Returning to the formula that worked for The Elephant Man, Lynch again began tackling an existing script for a production company eager to work with him, but unable to fund his passion project. The result was 1984's Dune, released by the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group. Although the film itself was not a success, it led to a further relationship between Lynch and studio head Dino De Laurentiis, which would see the release of 1986's Blue Velvet, and the consideration of Lynch as the director for the thriller Manhunter, a project which was ultimately helmed by Michael Mann and released the same year as Blue Velvet. De Laurentiis, buoyed by the release of Blue Velvet, a modest box office success, but critically acclaimed and once again earning Lynch a nomination for the Best Director Oscar, tentatively agreed to produce Ronnie Rocket. However, the studio failed to recover from the financial failure of 1987's $1 Million Mystery and were purchased out of bankruptcy by Coralco in 1989, again tanking the project in the wake of a company's closure. Over the course of its long gestation period, a number of actors were connected with Ronnie Rocket, many of whom have worked with Lynch on other projects. The earliest name linked with the title role was former child actor Dexter Fletcher, who appeared in The Elephant Man as a teenager. As the project matured, however, so did Fletcher, who outgrew the ability to play the diminutive character. Fletcher has expressed an understanding of the difficulties the film faced in attracting financing, acknowledging its abstract and unconventional premise. Following Fletcher, Lynch then considered Michael J. Anderson for the part. Anderson, who stands at 3'7", had been a computer technician for NASA before becoming an actor, and although the part in Ronnie Rocket did not pan out, he found fame with Lynch as a member of the Twin Peaks cast, later appearing in Mulholland Drive and the short film Industrial Symphony No. 1. In addition to the lead role, non-specific parts were also, at various times during planning, linked with Brad Dourif, Dennis Hopper, Jack Nance, Isabella Rossellini, Harry Dean Stanton and Dean Stockwell, all of whom worked with Lynch on at least one other project. To this day, Ronnie Rocket remains unproduced. Lynch has subsequently produced several highly acclaimed film and television series, with varying degrees of the surrealism he has become known for, ranging between the kooky, but ultimately normal slice of life of The Straight Story, to the dream within a dream fable Mulholland Drive, with the dark soap opera Twin Peaks and its revivals perhaps occupying the greatest amount of his time. And in between each of these projects, he has found time to ruminate on Ronnie Rocket, considering the film to be merely hibernating and not dead. However, the passage of time and the increasing loss of the kind of smokestack-oriented industry that shapes the landscape of the film's dream dimension make it increasingly unlikely that the adventures of Ronald Dart will ever see the big screen. Lynch has long been a practitioner of transcendental meditation, and in a book on the subject he ruminates on the process of seizing ideas. He wrote that ideas are like fish. If you want to catch little fish, you can stay in the shallow water. But if you want to catch the big fish, you've got to go deeper. And Ronnie Rocket is not a small idea. It is not a simple film or a kitchen sink drama. It's a bizarre amalgam of everything that has since come to shape Lynch's entire oeuvre. And in chasing this big fish, the director has found, time and again, that the deeper waters of Hollywood can be impossible to navigate.